I was in the East End of Glasgow a few years ago, and I was in a particularly rough housing estate. And I asked the question of a room full of 150 people, if anyone could summarize what life was like in this estate. And one older woman put her hand up and she says, well, son, see if you want a suntan or a criminal lawyer, fucking brilliant place to live. See if you want to buy a banana, you're going to get a bus and go 2 miles down the road. A wonderful encapsulation of one of the major challenges we face, which is the market economy does not serve people in impoverished communities. Now, the East End of Glasgow, okay, it's a particular case. The World Health Organization has for years agonized over why this part of this city is such an anomaly in the West. If I tell you that in parts of the East End, life expectancy for men is 58, 10 miles along the road is 82. So what is the reason for it? Well, they have concluded that it's a lack of hope. A lack of hope. And all the things like alcohol and drugs and diet are consequences of this lack of hope. And it's all pervasive because, of course, children growing up with their parents and their grandparents have not achieved, who don't see anything beyond their limited horizon, are going to be affected by that. So we need to tackle these problems with imagination, zeal, and collaboration, creativity. Creativity is now the most important commodity we have at our disposal. So my first challenge, my first idea is that children lead the change. Haha, it sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? Well, it's not. It's not that radical an idea, because I've worked with children on campaigns and they are extraordinary. I'm talking about young children. And there is a city in India that started off something that has really sparked activity across the whole of India and actually wider in the Asian continent. And it started with a school in Riverside School in Ahmedabad, where a teacher called Karanbir Sethi challenged her children, aged 7, to go and change the world. They had to pick one challenge and they had to go out and do something about it. The first one they picked was child labour. So they were going out and speaking to employers and saying, explaining why child labour is not acceptable and why they should end it. They've changed zebra crossing. They've painted it in a much more child-friendly style. They've closed off the city a day for every 2 months to give the city over to children so they can turn it into a playground. They're out there teaching older people to read and write. I mean, this is astonishing. It's astonishing. And so I believe that children have got an uncluttered view of the world. They're not tainted by cynicism. They see things with utter clarity. They've got a vested interest in the future. In fact, no one more so. And they're imaginative, they're creative, and they're problem solvers. So let's give this challenge to children. My second idea is what I call uplift and learn. And it's a simple proposition. I was in a school in one part of Scotland, and I was looking at how the young people, second year, perceived the council. So I turned over the council logo and I said, what does that say to you? And this little boy said, no ball games, mister. So this proposition is about the fact that we've got so much negative signage, so much instructional signage. And I want to move that. I want to move it. In schools, we're now seeing, whole walls with bits of history, with the solar system. It's exciting. For visual learners, it's really stimulating. And it encourages you, to go on and explore. I want this brought into the community. I want signage changed. I want it to be incentivizing. I want it to be encouraging. I want it to be inspirational. I have done this in one major telecommunications company where one part of the organization felt totally distanced from the kind of heart of the organization, which was glamorous, exciting, full of stars, and they were just in a shed. So we changed this environment. The difference was astonishing. I want to bring this into communities. My third idea is one that's been tried and tested. And it's a serious one because it involves moving violence from a purely criminal realm into public health. This is what they've done in Glasgow. It's what's now spread across Scotland, and it's what's spreading across England. I've actually spoken to police chiefs in England, and they want to hear Scottish speakers because we are leading on this particular issue. And it is about moving, from this arrest, jail, forget about, lock them away. They come out and they've got, what did they go back to? They go back to what they know. So they've interrupted this by introducing the Violence Reduction Unit in Glasgow. And the Violence Reduction Unit has done astonishing work. I've seen young people like Callum, for example, who had been, both a perpetrator and a victim of knife crime. And when he was approached in hospital by the Violence Reduction Unit, who, by the way, do not wear uniforms, they wear T-shirts, colourful T-shirts, and he was asked, what would you really like to look back on your life and say? He said, I want my son to be proud of me. His son was 2 years old. His son had just seen him stabbed 9 times in the neck. Now, Callum is one of many whose lives have been redeemed, who are now part of the solution. They're going out, they're speaking in prisons, they're speaking on stages, they're speaking to young people who have not yet got into crime. They're speaking to people who are in prison, who have been serial knife crime exponents. And it's changing things. It's hopeful, because the belief here is that violence is not inevitable. It's an infection that can be treated. So has it worked? Well, in 10 years, the murder rate in Scotland halved, and knife crime in Glasgow came down by 62%. Yes, it works. My fourth idea is that all frontline people get trained at Disney levels of communication, customer service, because I have been there. I was sleeping out in London in 1967, and one night I was picked up, cold, bedraggled, by a charity and taken to a hostel. The first thing that was said to me when I arrived in this hostel was, take your clothes off. And I had a hose pointed at me. I was standing there naked and this hose was pointed at me. Now, I felt that small. And I escaped back to the streets because at least there I had dignity. And I realized then that every day we have thousands upon thousands of interactions, and how many of these fail to reach a satisfactory outcome for the person seeking help. I've been there, lots of people have been there. I've known of people who have tried to get help and have committed suicide the same day. This is important. Let us stop moving people from pillar to post, setting up gate posts, creating a spaghetti of routes that people have to go around, creating ridiculous questions, forms. People have anxiety questions, and we sometimes ridicule them or correct them, or we fight back. This is an opportunity to use every touch point to make that interaction one that positively directs someone, that lifts them. Disney does this brilliantly, because Disney does not deal in the let's meet needs, let's meet expectations. Disney goes beyond that. It's compellingly brilliant at doing that. And I've worked with Disney Institute here doing masterclasses, so I know all about this. It is astonishing how any question, any moment of anxiety can be transformed into one that's left the person feeling more empowered, cheered up, better equipped, and re-guided and helped, and knowing that support is there. So frontline people all trained to Disney style communications, and the human capital gain from having communication superheroes would be extraordinary. My fifth idea is one that should be obvious, but it's not. And it's about those areas where we have impoverishment. We need to bring in some fun, beauty, sensory experience, because where we lack it, I've always contended that, and I've worked in housing, that when people walk out the front door, what's outside should be an extension of their home. not some bleak landscape, not scantily clad green spaces. This is about bringing something into those communities. It doesn't need to cost a lot. The mayor of Tirana in Albania, he went out and he asked people what he could do to help make their lives better. Do you know what they asked for? They asked for colour. They asked for the civic spaces to be cleared up, and they wanted more trees. It was that simple. He delivered. They created a palette of colours. They painted all the houses in Albania, which, by the way, had been battleship grey. They'd planted 15,000 trees, and they cleared up the civic spaces. So not only were people experiencing greater civic pride, but crime came down quite dramatically. So let's bring colour, let's bring mini forests as they're doing in Scandinavia. Let's bring planters, let's bring in, benched seating in areas that are currently occupied by car parks. This is going to happen, but let's make it happen now. And if we need to colour the buildings, why not?